1977 was a strange and fascinating year for horror. While big titles like Suspiria and The Hills Have Eyes stole the spotlight, dozens of other films slipped through the cracks. Strange, experimental, and sometimes forgotten entries that push boundaries in their own ways. This was an era when horror was transforming, moving from gothic chills to psychological terror, from monsters and madmen to paranoia and the supernatural. And beneath the surface, filmmakers around the world were quietly creating some of the most unique and unsettling stories of the decade. Tonight, we're digging into 10 overlooked horror movies from 1977, the hidden gems, cult curiosities, and late-night oddities that deserve another look. Let us know in the comments which of these you've seen, which you haven't, and what other 1977 horror favorites you'd add to the list. Day of the Animals, 1977. High in the mountains, a group of hikers signs up for fresh air and weekend adventure, only to find the wilderness no longer playing by the rules. With the ozone thinning overhead and tempers fraying on the trail, nature starts pushing back, patient, relentless, and everywhere at once. The setup is lean, a mixed bag of personalities, a guide who's seen too much, and a storm front of bad decisions. When the first attack hits, it feels like a fluke. When the second comes, it feels like a pattern. Soon it's clear, predators and prey have swapped places, and the forest is calling the shots. The suspense comes from distance closing, the way quiet tree lines turn into eyes, the way a clearing stops feeling safe, the way night brings the soundscapes right up to your ear. Performances lean into survival tension. Fragile egos, stubborn pride, flashes of bravery that arrive a step too late. The filmmaking favors real locations and the unpredictability of animals, trading slick choreography for a rough, immersive texture. You feel wind, rain, and altitude in the framing. By the time the group is whittled down to desperate choices, the movie has made its case. When the balance tips, it tips fast. It's man versus nature done with blunt force, a rugged slice of 70s eco-horror where the trail map won't help, and the ridgeline is just another line you can't hold. The Uncanny, 1977. A horror author insists cats are the real villains of history, and he's got stories to prove it. Three tales unfold, different eras, different houses, the same soft-footed menace, before the framing present catches up with him in ways he probably should have expected. This is an anthology in cozy cruel mode, fireplaces, parlors, and claws. Each segment gives the cats a new angle. Silent witnesses to greed, instruments of revenge, or something older and stranger. The fun is in the tonal shift from genteel to nasty, watching respectable rooms turn hostile, one paw step at a time. Performances are arch and enjoyable, with actors leaning into the macabre, bedtime story vibe. Practical animal work and careful staging keep the set pieces playful and eerie, rather than outrageous. The direction treats cats not as jump scares, but as presences, appearing in doorways, on banisters, always looking, always waiting. Its charm lies in commitment, taking a premise that sounds whimsical and playing it straight enough to unsettle. By the final tag, you'll be side-eyeing the nearest pair of green eyes and wondering who's keeping secrets about whom. 9 Guests for a Crime, 1977. A wealthy family retreat to a private island to celebrate, reconcile, and quietly settle old scores. The tide rises, the boat leaves, and the smiles turn brittle. When the first guest goes missing, everyone discovers the worst part about a luxury getaway. There's nowhere to go. This is the elegant, poison champagne side of 70s thrillers, sunlit coves, white linen, and resentments that date back decades. The film uses the island like a stage, every terrace a trap, every corridor a confession booth. Motives pile up as secrets spill, inheritance disputes, romantic histories, and the kind of grudges money can't bury. The cast leans into suspicion with sharp glances and clipped lines. No one is quite innocent, and that's the fun. Direction favors clean compositions and measured reveals, more cat and mouse than splatter. Each disappearance recalibrates the puzzle until the guest list has more questions than names. It functions both as a whodunit and a morality play about wealth, entitlement, and the reckoning that waits offshore. By the time the truth surfaces, it feels both inevitable and nasty, a final reminder that, on a small island, the past has perfect aim. Prey, 1977. They arrive in the English countryside like a rumor, a couple living in isolation, and a strange man who appears at their door with a story that doesn't hold together. He's polite, he's curious, and he isn't from around here. What starts as awkward hospitality slides into a test of power, desire, and survival. The film is intimate, almost stage-bound, turning a house and its grounds into a pressure cooker. Meals, cigarettes, glances through curtains, every small gesture matters. The visitor studies human behavior with the cool patience of a biologist. The couple studies him right back, unsure if he's prey, predator, or both. The tension is erotic and ominous, with bursts of dark humor that make the next silence feel twice as loud. Performances are prickly and fearless, shifting alliances scene by scene. The direction lets quiet rooms breathe while the score pricks at the edges. When violence comes, it's not a set piece so much as a consequence, something that grows out of character rather than crashing in from outside. It's sci-fi horror in a tailored jacket. Small, strange, and memorable. The sort of film that burrows under your skin with ideas first, blood second. When the visitor's true nature is revealed, it reframes everything you've seen and makes the last look out over the fields feel chillingly final. Shockwaves, 1977. Paradise curdles fast when a tour boat runs aground near a decaying resort. The caretaker warns them to leave. The ocean goes unnaturally still. And then the figures appear, rising from the water in formation, goggle-eyed and silent, as if the sea itself is returning the past to shore. This is aquatic horror by way of war ghosts, disciplined, relentless, and eerily quiet. The movie trades jump scares for procession. Those slow, implacable marches through surf and mangrove, always closing distance, never hurrying. Sunlight is no protection here. The brightness only makes the shapes clearer. Performances sell the panic as options dwindle. Engines fail, radios die, and every path seems to lead back to the waterline. The cinematography builds a suffocating calm, lingering on horizon lines, and the mechanical precision of the stalkers. Sound design matters. No roar, just the slap of waves and the grind of old metal. Its lasting power is simple. An image you can't forget. The idea that something disciplined and dead has found you and will not stop. By the final act, escape feels like a math problem with no solution, just a countdown you hear in your own pulse. The Sentinel, 1977, an apartment in a beautiful brownstone, becomes the gateway to a different kind of neighborly. A model looking for a quiet life signs the lease. Soon, upstairs, parties get strange, the building's history leaks through the walls, and the kindly priest down the hall seems to be guarding something more than his privacy. This is urban Gothic, sun through lace curtains, old wood that creaks like it remembers, and a cast of tenants who don't add up. The film works in layers, seduction, then discomfort, then outright dread as the building reveals its true job. The city outside is lively and indifferent. Inside, time gets sticky, and the rules change. Performances capture the pull between glamour and decay, innocence and initiation. The camera lingers on corridors and staircases, as if the architecture itself is exerting pressure. Religious imagery threads through in ways that feel both classical and transgressive, pushing the story toward a confrontation that's less battle than acceptance of a role no one would choose. By the end, the apartment is less a place than a position. The film leaves you with the unsettling thought that some guardians don't retire. They're chosen, seated, and expected to watch forever. The Chosen, also known as Holocaust 2000, 1977, power plants promise progress, until an industrialist learns his global project might be the blueprint for something apocalyptic. Each new accident feels less like chance and more like design. Prophecies start lining up with modern headlines, and a father begins to wonder if the heir to his empire is destined for something far darker. This is slick, international occult thriller territory. Jets, boardrooms, desert construction sites, and cathedrals full of warnings he'd rather ignore. The tension comes from confidence cracking. Watching a man who thinks he controls everything realize he may be a piece on someone else's board. The film balances political intrigue with supernatural dread, letting symbols and coincidences stack until denial is no longer possible. Performances carry that corporate gravitas turned brittle. The sun's calm is as alarming as any omen. Direction favors glossy surfaces punctured by moments of brutality or revelation. Modern architecture doubles as ritual geometry, suggesting the future can be corrupted long before it arrives. It plays like a cautionary tale about hubris dressed in sensational clothing, the idea that the end could be built with contracts and steel, right on schedule. When the final choices present themselves, they don't look like heroics. They look like damage control in a world already tipped. Shock, Beyond the Door 2, 1977. A young mother tries to start over in a house that remembers more than she does. With a new husband and her son in tow, she's determined to make peace with the past. Until objects shift, doors breathe, and the boy's smile holds something she can't recognize. Grief, guilt, and something supernatural converge in rooms that won't let go. This is possession territory, but filtered through domestic unease, hairbrushes, photographs, a child's whisper at the end of a hallway. The movie keeps its terror close to the body, hands, eyes, a sudden change in posture, suggesting that the haunting might be psychological until it plainly isn't. The pace lets dread accrue, each small anomaly stacking into a pattern you can't unsee. Performances lock onto instability, especially from the lead, whose breakdown feels both intimate and mythic. Direction leans into disorienting edits and tactile sound, turning familiar spaces uncanny. The house is never just a setting. It's a collaborator, a witness, a trap that rearranges itself around the person most vulnerable to it. By the end, moving on has become a cruel joke. The film argues that some houses and some histories don't forgive. It's a tight, unnerving descent where motherhood, memory, and possession overlap until you can't tell where one stops and the next begins. Blue Sunshine, 1977. Blue Sunshine, directed by Jeff Lieberman in 1977, is a paranoid, slow-burning horror thriller that perfectly captures the unsettling anxiety of the late 70s. The story begins with a string of mysterious murders in Los Angeles, each committed by seemingly ordinary people with no apparent motive. As the plot unfolds, it becomes clear that all the killers once ingested a batch of the experimental hallucinogenic drug Blue Sunshine a decade earlier. The effects of the drug don't appear immediately. They fester for years before triggering violent psychosis, leaving the audience with a creeping sense of dread that anyone could be affected at any moment. The film excels at tension and atmosphere. Urban landscapes are shot in muted tones, with empty streets, shadowed alleyways, and flickering lights, emphasizing the isolation and unpredictability of the threat. The cinematography often lingers on mundane moments that suddenly become terrifying, reminding viewers that horror can emerge from the everyday. The narrative is carefully paced, slowly revealing the connections between victims and building a sense of paranoia that permeates every scene. Blue Sunshine isn't just a thriller about random killings. It's a commentary on the fragility of the human mind, the dangers of experimentation, and the anxieties of an era obsessed with drugs and social change. The performances amplify the tension, with ordinary people turning unpredictable in subtle yet shocking ways. By the climax, the film's slow burn explodes into moments of chaos that are both horrifying and mesmerizing, leaving viewers questioning how fragile sanity can be when pushed to the edge. For 70s horror fans, Blue Sunshine remains a standout. It's an unnerving, atmospheric experience, combining psychological dread, social commentary, and the uneasy strangeness that made obscure 70s films so unforgettable. Martin, 1977. He says there's no magic, just needles, razor blades, and a hunger he can't name. In a gray steel town, a quiet young man believes he's a vampire. Or maybe he's just sick and alone. Either way, people keep dying, and he keeps telling himself he's not a monster. Not exactly. The film sticks close to Martin's point of view, building a world of late-night trains, empty kitchens, and bedrooms where fear arrives softly. Black and white reveries cut through the present like faded memories, or fantasies, of cloaks and castles that may never have been real. The contrast is the point. The old myths are beautiful, but the truth is clinical, tragic, and human. Performances are delicate, especially from the lead, whose calm voice and stillness make every scene feel like a confession. The direction is intimate and unmannered, letting ordinary spaces carry extraordinary dread. Instead of grand Gothic spectacle, you get hallways, telephones, and the hum of appliances. Its legacy rests in empathy, a horror story that refuses easy answers, neither romanticizing nor demonizing its subject. It's disturbing because it feels possible, a portrait of isolation that lingers long after the credits, asking whether evil is in the blood, the brain, or the world that won't make room for you. Those were 10 overlooked horror films from 1977, a year packed with strange visions, eerie atmospheres, and creative risks that defined the decade's darker side. From undead soldiers and telepathic breakdowns to killer cats and apocalyptic prophecies, these movies prove that even outside the spotlight, the late 70s was overflowing with imagination. If you enjoyed this trip back to 1977, hit the like button, subscribe for more deep cuts from every corner of the horror genre, and drop a comment sharing your own forgotten favorites from this incredible year. And remember, always be kind and rewind, because every movie is someone's favorite,